decided to keep these two motors, try to take them apart and get the copper out. Quite packed in here, got really no space to work, but I'm gonna start taking them apart anyways. Right here, here's the last one I took apart. There's the center of the stator. That's all of the copper. All of that came out of just that one motor, so that's what made me decide might as well take the copper out of these two as well. Quite a bit of work, but it's not that bad for the amount of copper. I think it's worth it. Got the truck full of other stuff I'm gonna bring to the scrapyard today before it closes, but I got a couple hours, so I'm gonna spend a couple hours doing this. Last video I used my GoPro and filmed the whole thing. This time I'm just gonna take short clips in between as I'm taking it apart. I don't know which is better, to film the whole time or just to put clips. Maybe I'll start doing both. Let me know what you think, if you think I should film the whole time. I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling these things apart. Have to get the outside casings off first. So just take this off, get the casing off, and then take these screws off. Typically you can just hit these with a hammer and a chisel, kind of push the sides out. One side will come off and the other side should come off with the whole center, I don't know what it's called, the whole center axle in there. Come out with it. So I'll try to keep you updated throughout the whole process. I'll update you in a little bit. Almost forgot, I wanted to weigh these things before I started taking them apart. There's the first motor, 142.2 pounds. 158.2. That's quite a bit. Did the first part, the easiest part. Just undid those 4 bolts. And these long screws just pull right out. Sometimes they get a little bit stuck like this, so you gotta use a hammer and use another one of those and push it through. Sometimes you can use an impact gun and unthread it. It's not really threaded, it's just a bunch of gunk in there. But you can see this, it's starting to push away already by itself. So you have to do that on both sides. Did the same thing on this motor. Took out the 4 bolts, and took the long screws out. Put it all in here. Go ahead and use a hammer. Got both sides of it cracked open. It's a lot easier if you use 2 hammers, one as a chisel, one as an actual hammer. Now I don't know. Oh, yeah. Pull that piece right out of the center. It's a good chunk of weight here. This one's all cast iron, so I'm not even gonna bother taking it apart. Of course, there's a little bit of aluminum in here, but mostly steel weight, so it's not even worth taking apart, in my opinion. There's a bearing that was slid into here. Once again, it's cast iron. Put it aside. Now we're left with this. First thing I like to do at this point is check and make sure it's actually copper, not aluminum. I normally wouldn't use the back of a hammer like that, but it's the easiest thing I can find. Yeah, definitely looks like copper, so big chunk of it in there. Now all I gotta do is do the same thing on that one. One side of it off. But this side here, there's like no crevice at all for me to get the back of the hammer in, so got that one off completely. Now I can just hit this. Oh, pops the thing right off. The only problem with this one is now I need to get this off of this shaft because this is cast aluminum. Looks like there's 4 bolts holding it onto this side. So hopefully if I get those 4 bolts off, it should slide off pretty easy. And then I just gotta clean those 2 pieces up. There's always a little bit of steel inside here. This one looks like it's gonna be an easy one. This one might be a little bit harder, but shouldn't be too bad. This is a long one. A lot of copper in there. It's longer than that one, so it should be a little bit more copper for sure. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and try to scratch it. Yeah, definitely looks like copper. Got my grinder out. I'm going to cut both of these. Just one cut on each one for now. See if we can pry it out. It's going to get a little bit loud. Got both of them cut. As soon as it cut the last little bit, it kind of sprung open. So that's a good sign. I shouldn't have to cut the other side. Just try to pry it open a little bit more. And then just slide the stator thing right out. And go ahead and grab my crowbar. See if I can do this with one hand. It's not looking too good. Not doing it with one hand, I mean. Trying to get it open as wide as possible for now. There you go. This is really hard to do with one hand. Hopefully that's good enough. Little wires. I'm not sure if they'll pull through or not. There we go. So that's substantially smaller than that one. This one is quite a bit bigger than this one, so pretty good. Oh yeah, it's still heavy. I'll get that one out of the case, and then just for fun I'll go ahead and throw them both on the scale and see how much they weigh without any of the casing. And then I'll probably finish taking the copper out of these tomorrow because it's getting later. Got to get to the scrapyard. Got both of them out. This one's quite a bit heavier than the smaller one. Got the scale behind me. Just turn it on. The small one I can just lift with one hand. Just. 69.1 pounds. It's not much to grab onto, that's why it's so hard to pick up with one hand. Okay, and the second one. The only way I'm able to pick it up with one hand is if I put my whole arm through it. 91.5. Should be a decent amount more copper out of this one than this one for sure. I don't know if I'm going to keep the weights separate or if I'm just going to do the total for two. I think that's it for today. I'll update you as soon as I get back to this tomorrow. Go ahead and cut the ends right off. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull it through with the crowbar. I cut one side flush. Sometimes you can use a crowbar and kind of pry it out. I don't think I'm going to be able to on these ones because they're quite big. So I'll probably end up having to cut both sides again and then use some sort of little chisel, like threaded rod, push it through one piece at a time. That's it for now. I'm gonna go ahead and try to cut one side off of each of these things with the Sawzall. See how flush of a cut I can get, because there's no edge on here, so I should be able to get a pretty flush cut. The wire shouldn't be able to shake too much as long as I keep the blade right against the steel. But most of the time it likes to get frayed, at least a couple wires. So I might end up just cutting one side with the Sawzall and then cut the second side with the grinder to make sure I can get a perfectly flush cut, just to make it easier to push the things through. But I don't have any more cutting discs, so I'm gonna have to go buy a couple if this doesn't work. I like when it's perfectly flush of a cut. It makes it so much easier. So if this isn't perfectly flush, then I'm just gonna go ahead and get new ones, new blades. If I had a place to have proper fires like I used to, then I would just stick these things into the fireplace, let them burn for the whole night, let them cool down, and then it's so much easier to pull it out. Those things will pretty much just slide out if you melt all the enamel that's on the copper and get rid of all the paper. It loosens it up a bit and you can pretty much just slide it right out. But I don't got access to a place where I can have a fire like that. Hopefully sooner than later I'll have a place. But for now, I'm gonna get back to this. I tried sticking the crowbar in this one here. It started to pull out the tiniest little bit, so I kept trying. It was pretty hard with the crowbar. So I tried to just use my push rod, threaded rod, and push some of these in. Just hitting it with the hammer, and it's going in nice and easy. So I think I'm just gonna work my way all the way around, going a little bit deeper each time I go around, try to push it all out in one piece. This one I might have to cut the other side still, because the longer they get, the harder they get to push through. And if they're all attached to each other like this, it puts more friction on it, I guess, so it's harder to push it. So if it's really hard to push through, then I'll have to cut it and push one at a time. This is why I just cut the other side off. Normally I'll just cut the other side I figured this one's a little bit smaller, I could probably push it through in one piece. But it's more of a pain in the ass than it's worth. The pieces go partially through, and then they're getting binded up at the end here. So it's hard to get them all to go right through. Well, that took forever. That was pretty brutal. Definitely, I'm just gonna cut the other side off. This causes way too much friction. Instead of just sliding out nice and easy in one piece, it's trying to hold on to the other side, so it's way too hard. So I'm definitely gonna cut that other side off. Just gonna go ahead and take like a 5-minute break because my back's starting to get a little bit sore from being arched over that stupid thing the whole time. Probably put my knee pads on or grab a little stool. But always do things the hard way, right? I'm gonna take a quick break and I'll update you in a little bit once I get to cutting this one. Boom. Got the second side cut. Pretty good cut most of the way. As soon as I get to the last little bit of what I'm cutting, I tend to get a little bit away from it. Do the same thing on this side. It's not too bad though. I'm pretty close to being flush, so it shouldn't be a problem. This one should go a lot quicker, so I'm gonna set my time lapse up again and compare it to the last one, and hopefully it goes a lot faster. There we go, got it all out. As you can tell in the time lapse, I ended up grabbing the tire to put it on top of, just because it makes it easier instead of swinging the hammer sideways, because the whole motor kept sliding around a little bit. I'll go ahead and lift this up, see what the pile of copper underneath looks like. Out there. Plus I got all this. Still gonna have to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. Take some of the paper off. Doesn't have to be perfectly clean, but get some of it off. Keep the guys at the scrapyard happy. It's all number 2 copper. Pretty good chunk. Doesn't look like that much because it's all tightly wound up. I'll go ahead and grab my scale. Put this all the copper in a bucket. Weigh it up. See how much we got. Got my scale out. Put this in a bucket. Pretty sure this bucket is 2.2 pounds. 2.1. 2.1. Go ahead and throw all the copper in this bucket. Still a little bit of garbage on here, obviously, a tiny bit of wire. Last time I did this with one motor, I ended up getting half of a pound of garbage off of it, so maybe a pound of garbage off this one. $49.1, so minus 2 pounds, 2.1, 47 pounds. 47 pounds off of 2 motors. It's pretty good in my eyes. I was thinking maybe 20 pounds a motor, because that's what I got off the last ones. That's even better. Go ahead and stick these 2 cores, the steel cores, on the scale. See what they weigh. $65.4. $46.1. It's definitely a good amount of copper from those 2 motors. Definitely glad I kept them aside and didn't just sell them as they were. Still got a whole stack of small motors over here that I'm going to process eventually, take all the copper out. Trying to think of a better method of how to do it. Got some ideas, but I'll update you guys on that later. So that's it for now. Good amount. Huge pile. Well, I guess that's everything for today. Thanks for watching. If you're a new watcher, please subscribe. To everyone that has already subscribed, thank you very much. Almost at 1,000 subscribers. Didn't think I'd ever get this much, so once again, thank you everybody.